just with a little housekeeping. So for the welcome, we are super excited to be kicking off STEMTober today. STEMTober is hosted by Wave Learning Festival and STEMI. Wave Learning Festival is a nonprofit educational platform that offers free courses for middle and high school students by college students in an effort to improve educational equability. And STEMI is a nonprofit organization that hosts STEM classes and events primarily for middle and high school students. So for those of you just joining, again, every Saturday in October, we'll be focusing on different STEM fields for anyone who hasn't had as much exposure to STEM as they'd like to explore. And so our first weekend today is all about engineering. Our second weekend is about computer science and math. Third on medical science and healthcare, and our fourth is on natural sciences. So without further ado, it's finally 3 o'clock, so I'm going to introduce our next amazing speaker. If you have any questions throughout the talk, please record them in the chat, and we'll try and get to them at the end. So you're very welcome to ask any questions throughout. And so our first speaker is Dr. Ramesh, a senior lab coordinator in Johns Hopkins University's Electrical and Computer Engineering Department. He has worked with imaging systems for the early detection of breast cancer and has taught the Biomedical Engineering Innovation Program at Johns Hopkins. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Ramesh. Our first question for you is, what experiences influence you to pursue engineering in your secondary and education and just in your life in general?
Let's see. I was primarily more interested in gadgets and stuff like that, mechanical devices, electronic things, and so on. So that's what actually pushed me into this type of physics and engineering kind of thing. I have tried other professions before, but I didn't like them. More satisfactory is here, and by chance I ended up in teaching, so that's how I ended up teaching science and engineering.
You mentioned that you had tried different professions and
yes.
They didn't really appeal to you. What were those professions and why did you choose engineering over them?
Okay, the first one was actually marketing and business. So I think you guys know about Procter and Gamble. Ever heard of that? So yes. My actually first job was with them. We had them marketing laundry detergents. Okay, so we have to do a market analysis, find out what all the people liked, what they will use, what are the rival companies doing with their products, and then even pass on information to our chemistry department, which was actually making all these, the chemists in the chemistry department will be making all those things, okay? Because if the other company is making a better product, then these products coming out here like Tide or stuff like that should have better ones. So it was mostly a lot of analysis and taking things from the market. It was mind-boggling to put things together, stuff like that. That was my first this thing. Then I went to archaeology. I did my master's in archaeology. So I did excavations in a place called Pondicherry. The University of Delaware team was there digging in, and the professor there was an expert in the matrix system of excavations. So there are many different types of excavating the ground. Now you just don't dig like anything like that, okay? So if you dig a ground, you can dig 6 feet in about half an hour or 1 hour. But in archaeology, a 6 feet will take almost 3 months. You have to go little by little, step by step. And there are many methods like stratigraphic method, geostratigraphic methods, and so on. But this particular one was a high-risk matrix method. So I was trained in that, and that's how I went through it. There were lots of other things that I didn't like with archaeology, so I didn't find it very satisfactory there. So I came back to physics, and from physics, I switched over to engineering.
I think it's really
Oh,
interesting how
interesting.
many
Oh, yeah.
how many fields you switched between. So just speaking of physics, you mentioned that you jumped from physics to archaeology and then back again.
Yeah.
What major did you pursue in college? This may be answered already,
So,
but and how would you describe your undergraduate experience?
so my undergraduate was in physics, but majoring in electronics. Okay, so uh, I went to University of Madras and Presidency College, and the education there was really old-fashioned, and it wasn't like the modern type of education. So you have to memorize everything and repeat it in the exam, which I was not good at. So you have to volume, you don't learn anything. So you can be good at everything. So if you're a very good Shakespearean actor, you might do very well in those exams. It doesn't matter whether it's physics or computer science or chemistry or anything, because you are given a book, you memorize the book, go to the exam hall, there'll be questions and you have to write them word by word exactly what's in the book without saying it. So I wasn't good at that. So I had a very tough time. So that's why I packed up all my bags and came over here to the United States, where education was different, more of a learning type. So that's where I was. Then, after finishing my bachelor's degree in physics, I went to the local planetarium where I studied astronomy and telescope making for 1 year. So it was an extension of physics, mostly optics and other stuff. There it was much different. So there we had to really learn. There were no exams or anything. You had to sit up all night photographing the stars and things like that, documenting them. You have to make your own telescopes. You have to grind the glass, all that stuff we had to do. Then afterwards, of course, I had all these business stints, then went for a master's degree in archaeology. Archaeology was a little different because they were taking you to places to look at buildings, ancient temples, excavation and stuff like that. But there were a lot of things that I didn't like there. So I was a kind of journalist then, writing articles for newspapers, television programs. So for a few years, I was a freelance educational journalist kind of person. So finally, I packed up bags and came over here to do my master's in physics first. Yeah.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. So then, I have a question though. So, why did you switch from physics to archaeology in the first place, and how did these fields intersect? Like, what correlations do you see?
Okay, so I had actually finished my bachelor's degree in physics with electronics. Then I went into astronomy. So I was from a part of southern India where there were no master's degrees in astronomy. If you want to go, you have to go to North India. And I did not know the language. My primary language was English. So North India, you need to speak Hindi or whatever their language is. So I couldn't go there. It was not safe for me to go there. That's how I felt. So the one other option, I was looking for something really interesting, something where I didn't want to go and just repeat like a Shakespearean actor or a movie actor from the Alfred Hitchcock movies where they speak dialogues. Because in today's movies, you don't speak that much dialogues, you know? It's all action. So I was not good at that. I wanted to do things. So I noticed that the University of Madras had this program where people are not like, they did have exams, but the major concentration was they'll send you on field trips. You have to go locate isolated temples, take pictures, draw the plan, document them, and bring it back. You have to go and do excavation. So I thought it was more interesting. So I went there. And that's why I switched over to archaeology.
That's really, really interesting because like my parents also studied in India for all these things, and my dad did a BSc in all these places, and it was very close for him also. Same with my mom. Yeah. So now, why did you switch from archaeology to engineering though? And like, how do your experiences in the field, like just like the previous question, how did they compare with each other? And do you find any similarities in the field in terms of the colleagues you work with, the, you know, the methodology, you know, the systems or the structure?
Yeah, the people in the arts, they think and behave very differently from the people in engineering. So people in engineering are very scientific. They are very much into their field. They don't involve, there is less amount of politics, discrimination, and all that stuff in engineering, while people in the arts like history, English, literature, other sociology and things, I found out that they have a lot of problem um, addressing each other, political problems, social problems. They bring it into their classrooms, workplaces, and have all kinds of trouble. Even if you go to YouTube, if you see what these history students deal with each other, you will see all posting slurs and fighting with one another about all kinds of things. I don't want to mention some big professors because I was in this field of history, archaeology, and religion. I see these professors from Chicago and Boston and Baltimore, Washington, DC, all these people posting each other, even crossing boundaries, accusing the European professors of something, and the professors in India and China accusing each other. So there's a lot of these politics and fight that goes on. That much of fighting I notice is very, very little in engineering. They do have politics, but then engineers are very much like they work with coordination. They understand each other. They even help each other out. Okay, so most of the time they spend on dealing with whatever is their problem, like scientific problem that they're doing in the laboratory or their computation. That's what they're working on mostly. So the attitude of these two groups are the first thing that I noticed a lot different. So engineers work a lot. And secondly, engineering, it's more scientific. So there is no such thing as I think so, you think so. You have to do an experiment, you get a result, you need to prove it. Everybody gets the same result. While in history or sociology or archaeology, there is a lot of thing, I think so, this is my hypothesis, this is what I say, and there is no concrete proof. So then 3 different groups of people come up with 3 different ideas, and then they start fighting with each other with no proper proof, or what happened 1,000 years ago, we don't know.
Really hard.
Okay, so here in engineering and science, you have to show it by experimentation and proof, and that's it. If it works, it works. Otherwise, you can't say, oh, I think it'll work. That's not a possibility here.
Yeah, these subjective fields are very, very competitive in terms of their nature of thinking and all these discussions. It's really baffling sometimes, but yeah. So now, let's switch to your actual, the research you've done. And so I saw a few papers that had your name or referred to you or that you've worked on. And so could you explain your work on CCD-based spectroscopic imaging system for early detection of breast cancer over like a broad sense or specific any?
Okay, so the current mammograms, they usually use X-rays and they're very painful. And all they do is they shoot an X-ray straight through the breast tissues, and whatever is there, if there is a very solid lump, and you know that X-rays are really good for bone imaging, but not very much for, of course, there are some specialized X-rays where they can give you some medicines to take and then goes into your stomach and you can image your intestines, but that's something different. You can also send some radioactive chemicals through your blood and image. Leaving that apart, just shooting X-rays through tissues, it's very good for bone imaging, but for other things, it's not so very good. Okay, just shooting a plain X-ray straight through. We're not talking about CAT scan or all those other things. Okay, so the amount of false positives with the current mammograms that shoot X-rays is very large. And also to detect it, it detects the tumor only at a very late stage. So by that time, it's already grown up and big. So the surgeon has no other choice other than to cut open and remove the tumor. Okay, so My advisor at Clemson University, Dr. Jiang, he came from Dartmouth. So Dartmouth, his advisor was working on this, wherein we send light rays through the breast tissue. So lots of things happen, all kinds of scattering happens. Okay, there are many different types of scatterings, which I won't go into details here. You can read about it, like Mies scattering, Rayleigh scattering, Tyndall scattering, diffused scattering. This technique was called diffused optical tomography. So what happens is the light goes in, it gets scattered, disappeared, and comes out through the breast tissue in all different directions. And that light is picked up by the fibers strategically located at different points around the breast tissue. The location of the fibers is also noted down, where they receive and how they receive the light coming through the tissue. And we will use that to detect the breast cancer formation at its early stages so that the doctor can cure it without surgery. So this technique, and there are other techniques too, optical techniques. There is one called Ramen Spectroscopy. It uses the Ramen spectroscopic method for determining this. And MIT, UT Austin, and Vanderbilt University are really good at that. I think Rice University also, they have a group. That's a different technique, and they're working on it separately. It has its own advantages and disadvantages. This one also has its own advantages and disadvantages. So I primarily started with sending a tungsten halogen light, which is nothing but your car headlight. Similar to a car headlight, but we use a scientific quality light, which is very expensive and gives a good uniform frequency of waves. And it was not so good. So then I switched over to a helium neon laser and experimented with it. Then passed it on to the future group of people who are still working on it. So that's what I was working on. Still, it's not completely there. Right now, I have a colleague here, Professor Israel Ganot, who is working on thermal imaging. So he tries to see the infrared thermal images coming off from the breast tissue, and he wants to identify it with thermal imaging, tomography. So there are many techniques. So I was using this particular optical method, which was like scattering, diffused scattering. No specific thing like Raman spectroscopy or anything. Somewhat we got some results and published it. Further researches are still going on. It might take a few more years before we can completely bring out a good technique. There are also Raman spectroscopy, people are working on it. Thermography, like my colleague who is from Tel Aviv, he's also working on it. So there are many techniques going on.
Yeah, it seems really active in its form of research in the general field, which is really interesting actually to me, because I've been searching up these things on YouTube, especially Raman spectroscopy, because of the old video I saw on the science fair, the guy who won. Yeah. So what has been your experience as a senior lab coordinator at JHU, and what are your favorite aspects of working as a senior lab coordinator there? Like any trouble, like your experience.
Troubles are always there.
Yeah.
So that's what we are here for. Our coordinators' responsibility is to put all the troubles in. So yes, at the electrical engineering department, what I do is I deal with a lot of projects for undergraduates. So I am in charge and I teach the senior design class, which is purely project-based class. So every 2-3 years, the project changes. And I will teach the students on how to build devices. We take a problem and we try to solve a problem. That's what we do. And we have done a lot of different things, from medicine to arts to just plain engineering. And the students are taught whatever they learn in their lower classes of electrical and computer engineering, they bring it over here and apply it and really try to solve the problem. Some problems come out really well, and the students take it out into the world and try to do further and get a patent and start their own industry. So far, 2 are still trying that. And I really like these project type of things. I also teach the introductory level electronics classes. And this semester, I also teach one more class called Design of Biomedical Instruments and Systems. So it was originally called Product Design Lab. Then we changed the name because if you just say Product Design Lab, the aim of this class is to, me and Professor Israel teach this class. We have a nice website. I can send you the website too. So the aim of this class is to teach a student how to develop their own product, then start their own company, go for fundings, find how to register their company or patent their product, and finally become a CEO by themselves. And Professor Gannott has started a lot of companies on his own, both in US and Israel. So I mostly help with the technical aspect of building the product and stuff like that. And since I also have an arts background, I teach them on designing logos, things like that for their new company and products. And since I worked in Procter & Gamble with that marketing stuff, so I teach them also on how to search for backgrounds for their product. Because you might like a real product, you might like something. But what if the people don't want it? So you need to go and first find out whether there's a market for it. So because you like something, you make it, then there's no one to buy it. Then your company doesn't take off. So first you go out. So I teach them, go out and search for it. Do they have anything? Then do you like it? Then you start it. So you should have both. There should be a demand for the product and you should like it. So you shouldn't start making a product because everyone likes it and you don't know anything about it. Then you are in trouble because you don't know anything about the product. You don't have a background. So it should be both together. So that's what we teach in this class. So it has been quite interesting here doing things that way.
Yeah, I think I saw one of your either a postdoc or an undergrad with their research paper on minimally invasive surgery techniques and all these things, and I thought it was very cool that you were helping on that, and your name was on the paper, so it was very, very cool. I think Diana had a question.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I had a follow-up question about all of these like design projects. So I was wondering, throughout all of your instruction, what have been some of like the most interesting or successful or just fascinating projects that your students and mentees have developed?
There are lots of fascinating projects. Recently, we just patented one product for Johns Hopkins. It was a brainchild of the director of Information Security Institute. His name is Dr. Tony Dabura. So I took my students. We had a group of students who were very enthusiastic. They had background in machine vision, imaging, and all that stuff, but we didn't have a proper project for them. At that time, Dr. Dabura had this idea. So we went to him and he said he wants this, this, that. So his interesting project was to design a helmet, and on top of the helmet, you will put sensors. And these workers will be working around earth movers. So inside the earth mover, the operator will be there. And very often the operator, while moving the earth mover, sometimes will not be aware of people standing next to the earth mover. So they'll knock the person down, okay? So either he has to open his window and look out all the sides, or have some spotter standing right in front of him, calling him out and saying, hey, don't turn right, don't turn left. So this is very time consuming, and in spite of it, the operator looking out or the spotter saying things, a lot of people have been killed and injured. So Dr. Dabura said, how about putting all these things on their helmets and the receiver inside the thing, and the operator on his little screen, like a GPS screen, will know where all these workmen are around the earth mover, okay? So if there is somebody there, then if he tries to turn, the GPS kind of thing will start beeping. He said, don't turn. So then he won't. So this was a pretty long project, details of which I cannot give because it's just patented and we are still going to patent further more things. So that was one interesting project. The second one currently going on is with Professor Israel Gannat. That's a senior design project where a drone is going to carry essential fluids, go in search of soldiers who are injured and lying in the battlefield, and will inject the saline solution. So very often what happens when a soldier is injured and lying on the battlefield, the ground team has to go looking for them and takes time. So before the ground team reaches, some of the soldiers die. And also they don't know where the soldiers are. So you send this drone out with an imaging camera, which starts looking for these soldiers and then locates them, goes down, injects, and it just sits there, sending a signal back to the ground team saying, hey, there's a soldier here. So the ground team that comes searching for them will locate the soldier. It doesn't have to be a soldier. You can also use this to search people lost in forests, in floods, or in natural disasters also you can use it. So the challenge here is first the imaging. It has to go and look for a person who is alive. So it has to look for that. So the imaging is a very complicated part. So it has to take the video in and it has to look and it has to see whether this person is alive. Then it has to go down, look for the hand and the vein in the hand, and then inject the needle into it and send the solution. So that's the second part. And third part is pretty easy because you can have a Bluetooth or radio wave that transmit back to the ground team that can come back and rescue the person. So this is the current ongoing project.
That's really, really interesting because they use a really similar technology for precision farming, where they'll do the same drone in agricultural settings to see like which plants have how their nature and their status almost, and they will actually map out entire farms with that technology to increase the efficacy of the the yield of the farm. Really, really cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like you've had a really diverse and exciting career. So I guess what I'd ask is, what has been the highlight of your professional career?
Highlight is, I have a lot of students out there who are in really big positions, doing well. Every time when a student comes back, a year or two ago, a student entered Stanford to do his PhD in electrical engineering. This year, a student has gone to Ohio State to do her PhD, and another one has gone to Georgia Tech. Locally also, many students have started their own companies and stuff like that. So these are the most highlights that I would say who are in very good places. That means I have done something good, so that's why they're up there. Because these students have taken one class every semester with me all the 4 years. Some class of the other, starting from the freshman year, they have taken. So when they graduate, the one person who has been with them all through 4 years is me. So I can clearly say, and I'm the one who gives all the reference letters, everything for them, because they have been with me for 4 years. And with the others, even sometimes when they choose an advisor for project, like a research project with a research professor, they just spend only 1 year with them. So I have a lot of students out in many different places, which I would say is a highlight for me.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess speaking of students, if we've got some high schoolers here interested in maybe going into engineering, biomedical, electrical, or physics, or any of the fields that you've sort of talked about today, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Okay, I would say choose something that you're passionate about. Don't choose because other people are putting pressure on you. I've seen a lot of people like that who are forced by their parents or forced by their peers or forced by some movies or something, or they like. When I was an archaeology student, another student was fascinated by all these Indiana Jones movies and stuff. So he comes and takes and suddenly realizes it's not like that. It's in the Indiana Jones movie, it's interesting, okay? But here, when you go into excavation, you will encounter everything from scorpions to centipedes to snakes to everything there. and you'll be sitting for months under the ground. So you have to deal with all that stuff. And you are traveling somewhere, okay? And you don't, you may not have a good hotel or something, and you might have to sleep under the tree. Okay, we have encountered all that problems. I once went to a remote place. I first went by a Jeep belonging to the archaeology department. The Jeep had a flat tire. Then I had to look for a bus, and the people in the local village said, the last bus has left. And the local village people don't trust me being a stranger. So literally we had to sleep under a tree. Okay, and in the middle of the night, one of us have to keep awake because under the tree, you can have centipedes, you can have snakes, all kinds of things come there. If you go into wetlands, tropical areas, there are leeches and all kinds of stuff. Okay, people don't think about it. And you have to like go miles and miles traveling, days and days before you encounter one temple or one structure. The movie finishes in 1 hour. In 1 hour, you have so many adventures. Here for 10 days, you'll be bored to death with nothing. At the end of 10 days, you might come across one structure. So this is a reality. So unless you are prepared for that, don't take fields like that. So don't look at a movie and take. Same way, some people look at science and say, oh, this is fascinating, science fiction, I love it, I love this, I love this. They jump into astrophysics and find that it's full of heavy calculus. Nothing but calculus from beginning to end, and they are mind-boggling. The same way doing chemistry experiments or making a telescope. You see all those colorful pictures from Hubble telescope, you think, oh, it looks great. But when they ask you to make a telescope with all the glass grinding and everything, no, you can't. But there are other people who love to do that. They love to do glass blowing, they love to do handwork, they love to work with their screwdrivers. Such people should go into this. They shouldn't be going and doing an MBA to analyze data. Then they won't like it because it'll be full of Excel spreadsheet with numbers and numbers, while this guy will want to be working with screwdrivers and stuff. So choose something that you like. If you faint at the sight of blood, then don't become a doctor. Recently, I had one student who suddenly switched into the engineering branch, and we have a biophotonics lab where I had to prepare the bullseyes for students to look at the lens of the eyes and learn about biophotonics, which is nothing but optics of biology. So then I was suddenly told, hey, when this student comes in, don't let him inside. I said, why? Yeah, but he was originally a medical student, but twice he went into the operation theater and fainted. So that's why he was chased away into engineering. So let him just do the stuff, and if he comes in, keep away all the bullseyes, they said. So choose what you are good at and what you like. Okay, so don't go, and you will really excel. Even if people say there is no scope for this field, no such thing, they'll say all artists don't make any money. Artists will end up in trouble. But you see, Picasso had made millions of dollars, isn't he? So if you're good at it, you will really come out well in your chosen field. Okay, so some people will say, don't do history. But I know a lot of history professors who are making lots of money by writing books. Just being a professor, they make so much, okay? Journalists, they're also doing well. So choose a profession that you're good at it. If you excel, if you come to the top, you'll be the best. It doesn't matter, okay?
Awesome, thanks. I think that will be helpful advice for everyone listening. So one last question, just to wrap up the questions we've prepared, just a fun one. Who is one person, whether they're dead or alive, any time, any era, that you would want to work with?
It's a pretty tough question. I think all the people whom I worked with are really nice. I've worked with a lot of nice people because you might think working with some big guy is good, but I will tell you, there are people whom I have met who had worked with Nobel laureates, and scientists come and tell me, oh God, it was horrible working with them. They'll say that. We might think this person is a legend, that person is great, but it's more depends on your compatibility, If you just don't think that, oh, working with this big scientist Einstein is great, or working with somebody being with Mother Teresa is great. You might have seen that some people have made some really nasty videos about Mother Teresa because they went to work with her. They were not in the same tune with her attitudes or things, so they come out and say bad things about her. But really, Mother Teresa did extraordinary work. So the same way, I know some Nobel laureates who are really great guys. In the physics department at Johns Hopkins, we had 2 Nobel laureates, but right now there's 1 person. Both of them are great people. I haven't worked with them personally, but I bump into them, say hello to them, and talk to them and discuss with them. Both of them are nice. But I had students who worked with them saying, oh God, horrible. I don't know why I choose this person. So it depends upon how compatible you are. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's George Washington or Mahatma Gandhi or Einstein or C.V. Raman or whatever. There are people around you, you find your own compatible people. So I have had my own compatible and incompatible peoples to work with. So I really don't have that type of thing. So right now I work with Professor Israel Ganat, who is really good, and another professor who became the chairman, Andreas, who is also a very big professor in electrical engineering. Both of them are really great, and we are doing a lot of wonderful things. So that's how I would look at it, because we don't know who those great people are. Isaac Newton lived 400, 500 years ago. Aristotle was 1,000 years ago. We may not know their good side, bad side. Everything is said nicely, because Leonardo da Vinci, one book says, this lists all his faults and stuff. Maybe he's a great guy, maybe he had a lot of faults, we don't know. So I really don't have anything, any specific person whom I would like to work with or not.
Okay, so I found some people asked some questions on the chat. And then so the first one is about IITs and says, what are the major differences between engineering and IITs and like top US universities or just US universities in general?
Okay, so I did not go to IIT, but I know a lot of friends who went there, and I did go to do other stuffs, projects and things like that. I have been there. So there, in India, you have this kind of a government approved discrimination. They have this thing called divided the society into the medieval people, it seems, I'm not sure, had a system called the caste system, which is not so much in the southern India. It's found in the villages of North India. So based on that, the modern government had divided the people into forward community, backward community, most backward community, and so on. So in all other organizations and institutions, things are reserved based on that. So if you get good grades in high school, there is no guarantee that you will go into college. Okay. So if you're a forward community person like me, I got very good grades, but they won't give me whatever I qualify for. They'll say, oh, you're forward community. Sorry, no, because all your ancestors were aristocrats and kings and queens. So no, we won't give you. So they'll give it to the other people. So the colleges in the rest of the places are filled with these reservation kind of things. But the IITs alone, they don't have reservation. It's pure merit. You get the grade, you go in there. But they have only limited courses like certain engineerings and stuff like that. But now I think IITs are opening up into a lot of arts and stuff. So IITs are purely merit. So that's why they are considered the elite institutions, because you get best of the best go in there. There's no shortcut. There is no backdoor methods to get into IITs. And the second thing is the IITs also have great facilities. While in other universities and colleges, of course, the one that I went to, they had good facilities because it produced 2 Nobel laureates, my college, Presidency College. One is Ramen, who invented the Ramen spectroscopy. He was from my college. and also Chandrasekhar, the astrophysicist. You know, NASA launched an observatory called the Chandra X-ray Observatory. He was professor at Chicago, even though he graduated from my college. So those two Nobel laureates came from my college, so we have very good facilities. Presidency College Madras has a big name. So the IITs are elite institutions where no discrimination, and facilities are really good. And the education also is more like not the repeat kind of exams and stuff. You do projects, you, what is that? You do all those creative things, okay? That's what IITs are. So IITs are pretty much close to the US institutions. So that's what I would say. There isn't much difference, I would say, between IITs, except that in the US institutions, so what you have is you have a freedom of choosing your courses and having choices of classes when you're doing the undergraduate courses. But IITs, they're very strict. They have the strict structured course orientations that you have to go through. But IITs are very good in comparison to American universities. They're almost similar because they were designed based on all these things. No? European and American universities, that's what they were designed on. So they're, when compared to US universities, they're almost identical. And the thing is with IITs, in the US universities, there are students who get into projects and stuff and sometimes get the easy way out and get the degree easily. Okay, there are students who do that, but IIT you can't. Everybody is under a strict watch thing, and when they come out, they are fully prepared. So there's no easy way of getting out to get a degree. Everybody is like caught up, and you have to go through and come through with the IIT. Yeah.
Yeah, IITs are really, really hard as a college in general. Man, it's scary. And then,
also,
oh yeah, go ahead.
Tuition fee at IIT is like 1/10 of an American university.
Yeah.
So the government takes up all the beat. The government pays off all. Even when I went to Presidency College, I barely paid anything for the amount of facilities that I used. So if I remember correctly, I paid like 243 rupees, which is like $10 a semester. Everything else was paid off by the government.
Yeah, that's really, really crazy. So now Matthew asks, what was the best living space that you had during your archaeology career? Like most memorable, maybe? I don't know what he's trying to say, but I think maybe probably the best one.
When I was stuck somewhere in the middle of the night.
Yeah, probably one of those, that type.
I was in Bangalore, which was ruled by a king long time back called Tipu Sultan. Ever heard of him? So I went to see his palace. Then we were supposed to stay in the guest house nearby. So the guest house was actually attached to the palace. The palace was converted into a big museum. So in the guest house, most of the beds were taken by my friends. So right next to the guest house was a storage space where there was a bed. I don't know whether it's true or false. So this bed was probably, Tipu Sultan was a big king, or maybe one of his ministers or generals. So his bed was put, either his bed or his general's bed or minister's bed was put there, because they can display only one bed for the people to visit. No? So the rest of the bed was in the storage. And in one of the beds I slept without knowing. Next day morning, people all freaked out. They said, did you see any ghost or did you see anything? I said, it was super comfortable because it was a king's bed. No? So I didn't see any ghost or anything, but it was a lot dusty and it was not so clean because it's like 300 years old, 500 years old, whatever it is. So that was the best living space, if you mean by that way.
Oh yeah, that's
Okay.
Yeah,
that's an amazing answer. I had a question actually back about so I know that you taught biomedical engineering at Johns Hopkins, but you're more like electrical engineering, I see from like with being a senior lab coordinator. So I was wondering, like, how do those two fields relate, like electrical engineering and biomedical? And yeah, just how do they intersect and what are the differences between them?
Okay, my second master's degree is in biomedical engineering. So so biomedical engineering is actually a combination of all other engineering and sciences applied form. So there are lots of things in electrical engineering that are used in medicine and biological things and so on. So all those are taken in and they sit there too. Same way, a lot of things in mechanical engineering that needs to be applied is also taken up by biomedical engineers. Okay, so there is like a crossover. So electrical engineers can stay in the electrical engineering department and work on these biological related stuff. Design circuits, design things, study about the neurons, neural networks, and so on. Okay, so there is a crossover. So that's where people come in.
Oh, you're going to say something, Diana.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that definitely answered my question. Yeah, if anyone has any questions about like Johns Hopkins engineering or the intersection between the different fields that Dr. Ramesh has worked in, feel free to pop them in the chat.
Oh yeah, I think I have a question.
We'll have like 15
For
minutes.
high schoolers who would like to be mentored, say like any of us would like to be mentored or have some form of mentorship, would you be down to mentoring any of us in research or just in projects in general?
Yeah, sure. If it is in my field, I can, provided I have the time. Right now, because of COVID, there is extra trouble here. I need to monitor all the COVID safety protocols in my department too.
Yeah.
Every research lab, I have to keep an eye on them. We don't want any one particular person falling sick, then the whole thing goes down. So that also, yeah, I would be interested in mentoring you guys too. If it is within my thing, otherwise I'll refer you to. Best thing for most of you to be mentored is to have somebody nearby, but of course it's COVID time. Usually what I do is I choose people nearby so that they can come to our lab and use the lab and things like that. Or have your teacher, before coming to electrical engineering, I was in the physics department. So the physics department had an arrangement with some of the local schools where the students will do the project under the teacher, and the teacher, when there is something complicated or needs something, will actually bring them to me when I was in the physics department. So teachers will bring them. And we also, the physics department also did summer workshop for high school teachers, training them to work because they are directly in contact with the student on an everyday basis, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I think we got a chance to ask about some of the most impactful work you've done with students as a senior lab coordinator at Johns Hopkins. But I guess I'd also want to ask maybe, since we've heard you've worked with high schoolers and students maybe our age, like what has been some of the most interesting work you've seen come out of that?
High schoolers, let's say I was in North Carolina. This high school had never been to a science Olympiad. So I went and I had to convince the headmaster and everyone, let the students go. It'll be useful. It will not interfere within their studies. It'll be useful for their studies too, I said, and convinced. And then I rounded out everyone. With the help of other teachers, we went to the science Olympiad. So there, everybody told me, don't worry, even if you don't get any gold medals or any medals, the first time teachers don't get any medals or gold medals. So you'll be okay. But surprisingly, we ended up with 4 gold medals. So that surprised all the other teachers from nearby schools. Okay, if these guys got 4 medals in the first year, then next year they're going to be even getting more. But I don't know what happened next year because next year I left for Hopkins. So I hope they're still going.
We'll never know. Okay, so guys, do you have any final questions? Because this is your time. If
Yeah,
there's
we have two more questions. Like I know you, so you just talked about Science Olympiad, which is that's amazing. Actually, as a recent Science Olympiad competitor, I just found activity last year. I was wondering, do you have any specifically like from the Biomedical Engineering Innovation Program, any favorite like final projects that you've seen throughout the years?
Um, all of them look equally good to me. No specific things. Um, yeah, they're all pretty good, and they're first steps to go for more advanced things. So later in life, when you look back, don't disparage them, but they are the first steps for you. So I think they're really good what people have done. Even the rolling ball thing, there was so many interesting stuff there. That was the most favorite, even more favorite than all those electronics, because that gives us so much of innovation there. If somebody can think so innovatively there, they can take their innovation up to any complicated mathematical things or biological stuff. Okay, if you don't have creativity in one place, it's not going to be existing elsewhere. Okay, so that's, you will see with many people like that, like artists entering the field of engineering, or engineers entering the field of arts, because they have the creativity. Creativity sometimes can be transported across things. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
so
that's a great answer for.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead,
The
Arun.
person asked that the person said, could you please talk more about the website you mentioned earlier?
Let me see whether I can.
You
pull
can put
up
in the
the-
chat maybe. That'd be
let me see whether I can post it in the chat.
yeah.
It's the website. We just started building it. My TA is building it. So let me see whether I can get the website. So if I can find it. Okay. So, okay. So it's not fully complete. Okay. But I'll just post it here. See whether you can go to the website and see it. You will see Professor Gannott on the
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. It's pretty.
left side and whatever.
Oh, so are these all the project? Oh, okay. I
Yes,
see. I see.
all the
Yeah.
companies and all the logos. I teach them how to design logos, because you can't just simply randomly design. You'll get into trouble, especially if you violate copyright violations and stuff
Oh,
like that.
could you
So,
explain about that more? About
which one?
the logos and what, like, the actual
It's a one full class, 1 hour class I teach on that logo design. So
yeah. 'Cause we
and
have
based on
a
that,
logo
then
and we want to
design.
know what it's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the last year's class student. Okay. And some guests and guest lecturers also there. So that full class is the last year class students, because they're going to become CEOs. We insisted that they dress up and come. Because if you don't know how to tie a tie or wear a skirt or wear a high heel shoe, then you are not supposed to be a CEO. You can go there with running shoes to a CEO meeting.
Really good. Okay. Does anyone have any last questions? If not, we will be
We have
finishing.
about 5 minutes left.
Yeah, we have about
Yeah.
until 4, I'd say so.
Yeah. So sorry, 7. But
Yeah, so
about 5.
that's 7 minutes of question, guys. Does anyone have a question? If not, just ask. Could you explain the legal implications on copy strike, on the whole logo business? Because people make copy and stuff, like the color schemes
So
and all these things.
logos, we don't want to be offensive. Okay, that's the first thing. If you accidentally design something that's offensive to somebody, it happens. The first 2 semesters, we didn't actually include logo design lecture at all. Everything was on patents and finance and technical things and stuff like that. Then when I started seeing the logos, they were like offensive to one group or to another group or something like that. Then some had very closely resembling something else, and that's a violation. So these guys saw one logo which looks very pretty. So they just took the same exact thing and put their name on it, but that's very unsafe. Okay, that guy can easily sue you. A long time back, you know these Oscar awards, how it looks like? There's a man-like thing in the Oscar awards, isn't it? Is it Oscar awards? And somebody else took the same Oscar awards, exactly took this exact everything and put his name underneath, and then he got into trouble. He was sued. So we had to teach them, look, don't go close. Same way, certain colors don't show up on the internet, certain colors don't show up on the print. There are lots of all these complicated stuff. Same way, if you're designing something on a biomedical instrument, you don't put some religious symbol like a crescent moon or a Om symbol or a cross symbol. You don't want those there. An Om symbol can be on a yoga studio, but not on a biomedical engineering stuff. A crescent symbol can be something in you are selling some particular product to the Arab world, fine, but not on a biomedical engineering product. So every product has its things. Then logos going horizontally or vertically up too long, it won't fit your product. Some logos okay, but in many cases we don't want that. You have to see what your product is and then design the logo such that it fits on your product. That's very important. And colors also matter. If your product is in one color, you can do a logo that blends and matches with it, but should not disappear. In that case, you can put a contrasting color logo. Or if your product is in particular color, you don't want to put a really loud and totally standout thing that nothing else is there, only your logo stands out. So there are so many things. And on the website, what you will see is you will see a lot of logos that are pretty much carefully designed so that there is no, there are one or two that are really close to something existing, but they still do not violate the trademark or copyright stuff.
Okay, that's good to know. So then a person asks, because she's in the Middle East, it looks like, they asked that, what is the best way to get research opportunities as a student in the Middle East? Most of the opportunities that I have found were only in the oil industry. Is it possible to pursue research as a student remotely? I have some on that, and you can answer that too.
Okay, so I have had students from Saudi Arabia, Dubai. It's not necessarily in that field. Like this friend in Dubai, she's actually working in the biomedical field. The other person who went back in to Saudi Arabia, she is, I believe, in computer science. So there are opportunities. So you might have to look up on a specific university. Okay, if you're looking for industry, the majority will be oil industry, but you don't have to. Even Professor Israel, who is my colleague, he has a lot of contacts and stuff, people working on biomedical thing. So there is, you just have to look around and search properly or email one of the professors in one of the big universities like, I think is it Saudi Arabia, there is Riyadh and other two other places. They do have, I definitely know they have biomedical, they have biology, they have even archaeology there, you know. They're digging and finding new old things that were before. So yes, there is a lot. But if you're just generally looking out, or if you're letting people come and search for you, if you're looking for people to come and grab you, they'll be mostly oil industry people. So don't go after people who are grabbing you. If you're sitting somewhere and somebody comes and grabs you, that means they're desperate. You are in trouble. So you go look for, search for into all nook and corners. You will definitely find things. Particularly all the Dubai royal family people were educated at Johns Hopkins. So they all should definitely have a medical background and things like that. So it is there, but you need to look out. If you're sitting at your place and let them grab you, then it will be all only oil industry.
Yeah, I would tell to go more into computational things, unless you don't actually have a wet lab environment or any type of environment to work in physically, then your best bet's probably doing something computational such as like computational biology or some form of machine learning or computer science. That's what I was thinking.
To tell you, some of the Arabian universities have some amazing labs, okay, wet labs and stuff. They have really good chemistry and biology labs, okay. I'll tell you that because I have students from, right now I have one student from Saudi Arabia who's here, who actually wants to go back because he thinks their labs are better than our labs here, okay. So he is in biomedical engineering, so he wants to go back. So there is opportunity. So look up the website of the local universities and see the particular professor in the departments. A lot of people graduating from biomedical engineering and Johns Hopkins have returned back. They're all now like with PhDs, professors there in United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, I definitely know of. So yeah, there are options there.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I think we'll be ending this.
Yeah, so thank you again so much, Dr. Ramesh, for joining us. I hope
Yeah,
everyone really enjoyed such a diverse and amazing journey through archaeology and engineering and business. So yeah, thank you everyone so much for coming. At 4:15 p.m. PDT. So in 15 minutes after we have our short break, we're going to start our college panel. So especially if you're a high school student interested in engineering, that'll be definitely something you might want to check out. Our speakers are from Harvard and UPenn and a few other amazing universities. So